You are now watching the Ball and Beats podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 111 of the Ball and Beats podcast. As it is, me, Logan, and Spencer here today.
What up?
We have a very fun episode for us on our hands
do.
today. You know, it's been a couple weeks. How you
Took a
doing,
hiatus.
Spencer?
We took a hiatus. You know, I'm doing great. I'm ready to get back into it. I'm ready to get back into the grind.
I'm
Let's
so
go.
ready to get back into the grind.
And you know what I'm ready to get back into? I'm ready to have football back.
Oh.
And college football starts this weekend. Now, you don't have a lot of great games, but with week 0. But, you know, Georgia Tech, Florida State in Dublin. Nothing says Irish like the Seminoles and
The Yellow Jackets.
the Yellow Jackets.
Yeah, not like Fighting Irish or anything like that, and Notre Dame wouldn't scream.
And then the nightcap, I believe, is Nevada and Boise.
Something like that. I know
It's Nevada and someone. I can't remember. That's, don't
Yeah.
really pay attention to,
It's Delaware State, Hawaii, actually.
Oh, yeah.
That's the
That's
real
a fun
nightcap.
story.
That's
Delaware State didn't even make their plane.
No, they didn't.
That's
yeah,
funny.
The 10-hour flight they need to make from Dover, Delaware to Honolulu, Hawaii.
You know what? If I was on that football team, I would say that's perfectly fine. I'd get there as early as I can to, enjoy a week in Hawaii. No, I'm going to get the brakes beaten off in football because Delaware State is, it's an FCS 1000 team. And then Hawaii is one of the worst teams in FBS. But normally any FBS team can beat an FCS team.
Maybe the best uniforms, though. And best...
The best name. Or the
Best name.
Rainbow Warriors is awesome.
It's awesome.
Their old uniforms with the old H with the rainbow
Yes.
coming out in the helmets, those are sick.
You really can't get anything better than playing football in Hawaii, though. Like, think about that. Like, go to school, you're on vacation all the time. There's no way.
Well, you can say the same thing about Miami.
no way.
You can say
There's no way.
the U. You can say the same thing about the U.
You
You look
could.
at the U campus, it's literally like a vacation place. Every dorm looks like it was built 10 minutes ago. It's all brand spanking new. I mean,
Their
you
football
got to
facilities...
Their football, Hard Rock Stadium is solid, but I think
not on
think
campus.
Miami needs their own stadium.
Yeah,
I
they
think
had the Orange Bowl. The
yeah.
Orange Bowl, they had it.
Yeah, but
Miami-
that's old,
Miami.
and people didn't want the Orange Bowl
Thing is,
anymore.
if the U wants to be back to actual prominence, you know what they would do? They would do exactly that, so that way they could have on-campus environments. To me, if you are a college football team, you need an on-campus environment for that to truly thrive.
You need your football stadium to be on your campus because it's not the same if it's not. Like you look at UCLA, having to travel like an hour to the Rose Bowl, it's ridiculous.
Right.
You're not going to get as many fans because not many fans are going to want to drive over an hour to a very scenic place in the Rose Bowl. But UCLA football, no.
It's not worth the drive.
It's not worth the drive. If it's on campus, yeah. But, it wouldn't be the same.
For sure. Well, we have today our college football playoff predictions
Yes, sir.
for this week, as it is week 0 of the college football season. And so we might as well get our season predictions out the way. So we're going to go to Spencer's playoff bracket here. He's going to break down how he thinks this college football playoff will go for 24-25.
Yep, I'm going to get every pick right. None of it's wrong. Big brain stuff, We're going to start out with this. The 8-9 matchup, arguably my favorite matchup of, my playoff bracket. Missouri and Penn State. Penn State, their offense last year when they played good teams was not good, but their defense was elite. And with Missouri, you have Luther Burden and you have Brady Cook. And they have an elite offense. Their defense, they're kind of much of opposite teams. Penn State has a very rough offense when playing good teams, where they have a great defense. Missouri has a great offense. Penn State has Missouri has a so-so defense. I am going to be picking the Missouri Tigers to advance to play the number 1 overall seed, Oregon, in my quarterfinals. On the bottom, as you can see, the match, we already put that on there. Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks, are my team to get the group of 5 bid. I am really high on this Red Hawks team. I think this team, with what they have with Gabbert, that defense, bringing everybody back this year, I really think this Red Hawks team is not only going to go undefeated in the MAC. I think they're only going to lose one game, and I think it's at Notre Dame. And even then, I think that'll be a close game.
I was going to say, for a MAC school to get one loss and still be in the playoff, that's tough for me to see that happening, I would say.
Well, there's a lot of teams, like you can say Liberty. Liberty plays nobody. They have the 134th ranked schedule in all of football, and that's going to hurt them. They literally play nobody. If they lose one game, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get in no matter what if they lose one game because they play such a crappy schedule. And for people saying Boise State, while Boise State is good, Boise State gets this hype every single year. Oh, Boise State's going to make a run in the Mountain West. Boise State's going to do this. Boise State's going to do that. And yet they always go 9-3. They always go 9-3, 10-2. And I don't think that's going to be enough if Miami of Ohio has a close loss at Notre Dame. They go to Northwestern, and while Northwestern isn't good, they are still a Big Ten team. Goes on the road and beats Northwestern, and then goes through a MAC schedule who the MAC isn't really the greatest conference, to be fair, but there are solid teams like Toledo. I think Bowling Green's going to be very good this year. Northern Illinois will be on the upswing. I think there's going to be a lot of solid teams in the MAC, and I think Miami's going to just annihilate everybody. So I have Miami versus my first team out of the conference champions, Ohio State. The reason I have Ohio State there is because I have Oregon winning the Big Ten. I think Ohio State's going to be very good this year. I just think that Ohio State-Oregon matchup, if it was in Columbus, Ohio State would win. But it's in Eugene, I got to pick the Ducks because it is going to be a night game at 7:30 on NBC. Thanks, Joel Klatt, for letting everybody know. But I got to pick Ohio State to beat Miami. So, Miami has a good run. They're not beating Ohio State. They're not beating that tier of a Big Ten team. So, on the other side of the bracket, the 2013 National Championship BCS game, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Give me Alabama. Notre Dame's going to make this playoffs probably every single year. I think Notre Dame, with what they have with Marcus Freeman, is going to be very, very good. I think they're going to have a solid team. They did lose their left tackle in Joe Alt to the draft last year, but their defense is going to stay solid. They brought in Riley Leonard from Duke, and I really think this team is and they don't play in a conference, so they don't have to worry about anything because they're a bunch of scumbags.
Hey,
yeah.
Notre Dame, they're not going to win a big game ever in their life. Let's be honest here. So, and
their schedule is not very hard. I think their toughest game is at Texas A&M. I believe that, and I know they play Florida State at home too. And Florida State, I think, is going to be very good this year as well. But I think with Notre Dame, I think they lose like one game. I think it'll probably end up being the Texas A&M game. But I think they win 11 straight games after that because, Kyle Field is one of the worst atmospheres to go to as a visiting team. So, my next part of the bracket, the 6-11 matchup, I have the Texas Longhorns and the Florida State Seminoles.
That's a fun one,
That is going to be a fun game. You got DJ Ukulele for Florida State. Gotta love ukulele.
We still got to get that shirt for you, by the way.
We do. Well, I have trademarked DJ Ukulele. He's still in college football. He was with Oregon State last year, and they didn't do anything. And Texas, Quinn Ewers. Texas has returned a good amount of starters. They did lose their receivers, but it's Texas. They've recruited 5 stars. They recruited, elite players. I really like what Steve Sarkisian is doing down there in Austin. But I am going to pick Texas to beat Florida State. I think Texas is a much better team. I think they have the much better quarterback, and I think they have the much better defense. Florida State lost a lot last year, and they're having a new quarterback come in to learn the system of Mike Norvell, and I think that will be some growing pains for them. So, the start of the quarterfinals, Missouri versus Oregon. Now, I am very high on the Oregon Ducks this year. Oregon, in my opinion, and you can see by my bracket, is the best team in college football. I think they beat Missouri. And I think they obliterate Missouri. I think this offense with Dylan Gabriel, Tez Johnson, this team doesn't have a hole. They don't have a weakness, in my opinion. Their offensive line is very good. Their defense with Dan Lanning is always going to be good because he's a defensive genius. And Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman dark horse. If not, I don't even think he's a dark horse.
I'm pretty certain he's the betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy.
I thought it was Quinn Ewers.
I think Quinn Ewers and Dylan Gabriel are like
Carson
1-2.
Beck?
Carson. They're all in the top.
They're all
three
in the top
somewhere.
there. I will say though, I will say this: Dylan Gabriel is going to be my player to win the Heisman. I think he will end up going to Oregon, and I think he's going to have the best year an Oregon Duck quarterback has had since Marcus Mariota. This Oregon team has no holes. They have no weaknesses, in my opinion. Corners, safeties, linebackers, defensive line, offensive line, receivers, running back, quarterback. This team doesn't have a hole. So I think Oregon's going to go. I think they're going to obliterate Missouri. I think it's going to be over by halftime. Now to the bottom side of the bracket, Ohio State versus Utah. 2021 Rose Bowl, I believe. 21 or 22 Rose Bowl.
The Jackson Smith
and Jigba game, which, all Buckeye fans will remember. He had the game of his life.
That was the best game a wide receiver has had in
a long
college
time.
Football. Was it 347 receiving yards?
That's crazy, man.
11 catches. That Jackson Smith and Jigba, man. You're gonna do
best
some great
part
things
about
in
it. The
Seattle.
year after that, he wasn't even the best receiver on the team.
They never are. You noticed that, right?
They
never are.
When you have Marvin Harrison Jr., no, you're not. I have Ohio State beating Utah. I think Utah is going to be very good this year. I think they end up winning the Big 12. The Big 12 is kind of a solid conference. I wouldn't say there's many elite teams, but I do think Utah is the best out of that conference. With Cam Rising coming back, Utah is always going to play tough, gritty football. They remind me of a West Coast kind of Iowa. I wouldn't say Utah's a West Coast, but Western Hemisphere Iowa. But Utah can score points. Cam Rising's coming back for year 10. He needs to get a job.
An actual job.
An actual
job.
Yeah, he's going through a lot, Utah. But I think Utah's going to be good. But I think Ohio State, I think they have better weapons. I think they have a better defense.
It'll be the Jeremiah Smith game this year.
He's going to be so good. But I am going to pick the Buckeyes to face Oregon in the semifinals. Now on the other side of the bracket, Alabama versus Georgia. We've seen this matchup 1,000 times. It's always a good one. They play this year in the regular season, I believe, in Tuscaloosa. I'm going to go with Georgia because they have the more experienced coach. They have I just think they have a better roster, in my opinion. Georgia's going to have a better roster than Alabama this year. I know Alabama has Jalen Milroe. Alabama did lose some pieces. They lost a lot of pieces on defense, especially Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry. They lost Caleb Downs to Ohio State. This defense is decimated. And while Alabama recruits well, now they have a new coach in Kalen DeBoer. And I think there is going to be some growing pains for Kalen DeBoer. Alabama seems like a 10-2 type of team to me. I think they're going to have a really good year. They might. Georgia's going to have one loss. It may even be the game at Alabama, just because it's in Tuscaloosa. But Georgia will get their revenge. Georgia will move on to the semis. In the bottom half of that bracket, man, I cannot talk today. The U. I think the Miami Hurricanes are going to be one of the best teams in college football. And I know people are going to crap on me for that. And there's one reason why. I wanted Ohio State to get this guy so badly because I think he's going to have an absolutely stellar year with Miami. No one knew who he was because he played for Washington State. His name is Cam Ward, and he's not a goalie for the Hurricanes like he was 10 years ago. He plays football now.
Cameron Ward, absolute amazing dual threat quarterback.
Yep.
But it's Miami. No shade on
and
Miami
here's the thing.
fans out
the
there.
The ACC the past few years has had a down year. I know Florida State was very good last year. There's a reason why they didn't make the college football playoff.
The U, I need to see it with Cristobal. I know he's been recruiting well and he's building down there in Miami.
Yeah.
This is his best chance.
And here's
to
the thing:
have it,
Miami doesn't have a tough road game. They don't. Their toughest game is at home against Florida State. Most of their games, it's at Boston College, at Syracuse, all these schools.
You're gonna see in my playoff one sneaky team that I think is gonna surprise people out of that conference. So, but I don't necessarily agree with what you just said for that reason.
Yeah, okay, Clemson homer. You're going to go, I believe in the Clemson Tigers. Okay.
Nah, it'll be even more surprising than you actually think, then I guess.
What, are you going to put Boston College to make the Final Four?
Nope. You'll see.
Okay, whatever. So with Miami versus Texas, I think the Hurricanes are going to have a great year. I think they're going to win the ACC this year. Oh, calm down. But I'm going to have the Longhorns beating the Hurricanes.
Smart
I think Texas is a more experienced team. Quinn Ewers, I wish he was still with Ohio State. But Cam Ward and Quinn Ewers is going to be a fun matchup of quarterbacks. Dual threat versus elite pocket presence. But give me Quinn Ewers. So, semifinals set. We have a rematch of teams that might see each other 3 times this year. Oregon and Ohio State. They see each other in the regular season. They could see each other in the Big Ten title game. And they could also see each other in the college football playoffs. Now, in my opinion, Oregon's going to win this game. Neutral field, or at home. The game was in Columbus. I'd pick Ohio State. But it's not. I don't know where the semis are this year. But it doesn't matter. Oregon, I think, is going to have the best of Ohio State this year. Oregon doesn't have a single hole in their roster, and Ohio State does. Ohio State has question marks at linebacker. Ohio State's offensive line the past few years has not been good. And their quarterback is the biggest question mark of all. We don't know what Will Howard is. I know what Dylan Gabriel is. I know what Oregon is. And I know what type of football they play. Oregon's going to the national championship game. On the other side of the bracket, Georgia versus Texas. This is a fun matchup. Sugar Bowl of 2020, I believe.
The Sam Ellinger.
Yep. Where the Longhorn went up to Uga and scared the crap out of him.
Bevo almost destroyed the Bulldogs on his own.
Yeah, that was funny. It wasn't funny, but it was.
Okay.
It was kind of sad, to be honest. But I have Georgia winning this game. Georgia's up there with Oregon for me. And Texas is they're back, but they're not fully back yet. So my national championship game is the Ducks and the Bulldogs. This is going to be a Titan matchup, an elite national title game. I know it's 1-2. It may be boring, but I don't care. For the first time in school history, the national championship will be in Eugene, Oregon, and the Oregon Ducks will win the 2025 national championship. Technically 2024, but they will win it in 25. The Oregon Ducks will win their first national championship in school history. Phil Knight will be elated and will no longer have to put gazillions of dollars into this program because he finally sees his team win a national championship. This Oregon team is going to be so good, and I don't think enough Big Ten fans realize this is Oregon's conference right now. Woo! I love the Buckeyes. I will always be an Ohio State fan.
That's hard to say.
But I'm not going to be biased. Ohio State has question marks at quarterback. Question marks on the offensive line.
Can they even beat Michigan?
Yes, exactly. Michigan didn't make my playoff, by the way. But the Oregon Ducks will win the national championship this year. You can book it right now.
I like a lot of moves you did. The one that I'm just not a big fan of the Hurricanes.
Yeah, you don't like the Hurricanes.
I'm not a big Hurricanes fan this season. I need to see it out of Cristobal.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see it out of Cristobal. The good solid program he's building. It just takes time, and not yet. I don't think. Not
also,
yet.
and this may be a hot take at some point. I think Dan Lanning's going to need a job in the NFL.
At some point,
I think for sure he will.
I can see that happening for him in the near future for sure. But nah, it's not. Oregon.
Why? Why not Oregon?
Why not Oregon?
Yeah.
Because why not try and build Oregon?
Tell me why Oregon doesn't win the net. Tell me this team's weakness.
Tell you this team's weakness? Yeah. That just the fact that when it has been the biggest game before, they've never been able to do it. They played Ohio State in the big game once before.
That was a decade ago.
I don't care, but when the lights shine brightest, Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon's head coach at the time. He's gone.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to get into my playoff prediction here now and see how I see how everything's gonna shape out. Okay, I was so confused.
That's the perfect bracket.
That's the perfect bracket. I was so confused. All right, so my bracket. let's get into it, shall we? So,
Oh my God.
the 8-9 matchup.
way.
What's no way? What's no way?
No way.
I don't know what he's saying. No way.
Go. Keep going.
Okay, so at the top of the bracket, top left, we got the 8-9 matchup. You got the Mississippi, quote unquote, Ole Miss Rebels against the 9-seeded Texas Longhorns here.
Nope.
See, here's the thing about Texas. I was much higher on Texas, and honestly, I'm going to admit this. They're not making the national championship. I originally had them in my national championship.
Oh.
But they don't have C.J. Baxter for the season, and to me, that's a big question mark. They're starting running back. It does concern me for them moving forward throughout the season. I will say, though, I do have the Texas Longhorns moving on against Ole Miss. I do believe that Texas has the better quarterback situation. I believe they have the better coach, and I just believe they have the better program built right now to succeed. I don't think Ole Miss, they hit the transfer portal a lot, and, I still think Jackson Dart, he's a quality quarterback. They lost Quinshon Judkins to Ohio State. The running back room is a question mark. And, I feel like Ole Miss, they're in the step in the right direction, but I think they need to get a lot more homegrown talent and really try and develop. And that way I think Ole Miss can be a better program moving on here in the future. So let's get on to the next game here.
A lot of talk
on the bottom.
You just said a team made the playoff, and you're saying all the critiques against this team.
So
the no defense playing Rebels.
So
All right,
down
keep
to
it
the
going.
bottom matchup here, we've got the 5th-seeded Ohio State Buckeyes, of course, against my group of 5 school that makes it. I'm going here with a little bit of a wild card. It's a team no one's talked about a lot, but they're still always kind of brought up. I'm going with the Memphis Tigers. I feel like they've always been solid.
Yeah.
They've always been a consistent team, one that you think of when it comes to maybe they could have that chance, New Year's Six Bowl.
I agree.
You know what? I'm gonna give them the hand this time, and maybe they're the surprise of the group of 5 this year. Come out of nowhere, and they are going to make the playoff for the first time. Ohio State, of course, is going to beat Memphis. Moving on to play also the 4-seeded Utah Utes for me as well. So I do believe
Pretty similar, honestly. We have the same, roughly the same mix of teams.
we do
just a
have
few mix.
just a few differences here and there for me as we're going to move to the other side of the bracket here as we go into the 7-10 matchup with the 7th-seeded Notre Dame Fighting Irish against the Penn State Nittany Lions. Now, this is a matchup of teams who don't know how to win big games at all.
Yep.
This is perfect for
both teams because they can finally say they won a big game.
Exactly. And I feel like, to me, this is the most intriguing matchup of my playoff bracket. You got Drew Aller, you got Riley Leonard, Marcus Freeman, James Franklin. To me, I think the youth of the coaching staff of Notre Dame is going to play a big factor into this. I do think Marcus Freeman might be a better coach than James Franklin. But I do think that Drew Aller is going to step up this season. He's going to perform a lot better
Heard that last
than
year.
this past year. Don't talk about what I said last year. I might not have said he was going to win the Heisman Trophy. But
I heard a lot about Drew Aller.
But I do think Penn State is going to be a lot better. They have Julian Fleming now, wide receiver. They got a much deeper wide receiving core. I do expect that running back room to be as solid as it has been always. And I just think Penn State's going to be a lot better this year. I think, Drew Aller, he had a rough, shaky start to his career. I think he's going to settle down and be much better as they're going to move on to play the Georgia Bulldogs in my matchup as we're going to move to the bottom part of that side of the bracket here.
Get out of here.
I knew this was going to be the reaction
here.
here. I knew this was going to be the reaction. I know you guys see it already.
You're on. No.
So I have the 3-seeded Florida State Seminoles in the bye. I do think they're going to be the ones to win the ACC. I do think that they're better than Miami. I do think Uiagalelei is going to fit well there, and Mike Norvell, to me, is a top 5 head coach in college football.
How many times have I heard that Ukulele is going to be doing good this year?
He did last year at Oregon State.
He was solid. He wasn't great.
And he's going to be solid at Florida State.
Okay.
All right.
Cam Ward's better.
All right. So, this 6-11 matchup, people are saying no way. I know Spencer was about to say what he was about to say. I'm going to say right now. He was going to say you're on crack.
Yeah, you are on crack.
And I'm not. I got Bama at the 6th seed. And how about this? The 11th seeded Virginia Tech Hokies. Hear me out here. Look at their schedule. It is not that tough. And they had a top 3 defense in college football last year. And returning everybody. Hear me out. The Hokies are going to be the surprise of college football this year. Brent Pry in his second year at head coach there. That's a program to watch out for in the ACC. And I think a lot of people, they're going to be turning heads when it comes week 10, week 11. They see Virginia Tech's ranked 8th or 7th in the country. I'm just saying. Don't shoot the messenger here.
All right, when they're 7-5 for like the 20th straight year, I'm going to come back to this, just like I came back to the Drew Aller pick last year. There are so many better teams in the ACC. There's 3 better teams in the ACC.
On paper, but they got to play.
Okay. I can't name a single player from Virginia Tech. So
that's okay because they're not going to play Florida State in the next round because it's going to be, of course, Alabama. Now, into my quarterfinals matchups here. Top of the bracket there, the first-seeded Oregon Ducks, and the 9th-seeded Texas Longhorns.
Caught a lot of strays from you about the Oregon Ducks just for you to have them as your number 1 overall team.
Well, you can say you caught a lot of strays from me about the Oregon Ducks, but see, here's the thing. Dylan Gabriel, I also agree. I think he's actually going to be the Heisman Trophy winner this season, and I do believe that Oregon doesn't have many holes on this roster either. I will say Texas as well. To me, it just comes down to the loss of C.J. Baxter. How much is that going to hurt the Longhorns moving on into these bigger matchups here in the playoffs? Give me the Ducks to move on to the semifinals here, as I think Oregon is just going to obliterate Texas in this game, actually. Not just beat Texas. They're going to obliterate Texas. As we get into the 4-5 matchup, I can't really add too much. It's the same thing, really, what you said. Utah,
we had the
Ohio
same
State.
Matchups almost.
Almost similar matchups. We had almost
Penn
really
State, Alabama,
similar matchups, but the Buckeyes are going to move on. They're going to beat Utah and Cam Rising and them. Too much talent, too much firepower from the Buckeyes. Specifically this year on paper, this might be Ohio State's best roster on paper. You could argue since 2019, but maybe even farther back as well. Into the top corner, Georgia, Penn State. I mean, come on now.
Yeah, it's Georgia.
It's Georgia. Like, there's no way James Franklin's
There's no way James Franklin's winning 2 playoff games.
There's no way James Franklin's good enough to ever beat Kirby Smart. No offense.
Either Notre Dame or Penn State is going to get obliterated by Georgia.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Absolutely. There's just no question about it.
No.
And into the final game, Florida State, Alabama. How about this? How about Bama? Without Nick Saban, without the GOAT head coach of all time, they're going to beat Florida State and Mike Norvell. And, Florida State fans are going to continue to cry because they could have gotten farther, and they're still not even going to get the top 4. Wink, wink, lol. But Bama is going to move on. Jalen Milroe, I think he might be truly like one of the most, I wouldn't say hated quarterbacks. I just feel like he's disrespected because of his mobility. Like, no one can really stop Milroe when he's utilizing the run game. No one. There's no one out there that can stop him.
The problem is he only uses the run game. He can't pass.
Hey, sometimes it works. Hey, he beat Georgia. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he beat Georgia, and then he went to and then he played Michigan and just ran up in the offensive line and lost the game.
Well, Michigan obviously is not in my playoff this year, so he's not going to have, that.
Oh yeah, because the Georgia defensive line is just worse.
It's so much worse.
It's so much worse.
It's so much worse. Yeah, it's such a downgrade between Georgia and Michigan.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like Jalen Milroe, he's got a lot of pressure on him this year because of the loss of Nick Saban. He's going to really have to be a true leader for this team, and he's going to have to let
a
lot
lot
of naysayers know how Bama is really going to do this.
Alabama lost a lot, so I agree that Jalen Milroe will have to have a huge year this year in order for them to make this deep run. Jalen Milroe is a very good quarterback. The problem is that Alabama lost so much talent to the draft last season and to the transfer portal. They're going to have a lot of recruits having to step up, or a lot of underclassmen having to step up this year for Alabama, because Kalen DeBoer, you got to keep it going.
He has to keep it going.
If you don't keep it going, those Alabama donors and fans and everybody who gives Alabama money, you're going to get out the door.
For sure. 100%
They don't take any BS.
You cannot be like 9-3 consistently at Bama and think you're going to stay there that long.
Oh, no.
You just can't.
Not at all.
It just can't happen for you. And, I have a lot of faith in Kalen DeBoer. I mean, look at his track record. He is
Boise
104 and 12.
And then
as a head
Washington. And then, yeah.
If you go all the way to D3, up to FCS to FBS, constant winner.
Yeah.
He doesn't lose wherever he's been. And I feel like in that sense, I think Alabama's going to be all right. I do think Alabama's going to be all right. As we're going to move into my semifinal matchups here, on paper, these are beautiful. I can't lie. Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama.
Big Ten versus the SEC.
Acting like you didn't either.
No, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big Ten, SEC moving forward? Of course.
It's the two best
conferences.
conferences.
It is the two best conferences. And, let's go to Oregon, Ohio State first. Part 3, I might add as well. To me, it really does come down to quarterback. It does. It comes down to quarterback.
I better see that ORE in that next box if you just talked about quarterbacks.
Kevin, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Okay,
I got the Oregon Ducks beating Ohio State. I feel like there's something about this Ohio State team.
You don't know what Will Howard is.
Don't know what Will Howard is. Yeah, it is. It is the problem.
You don't know what Will Howard is. He could be great, but he could also be Kyle McCord.
He could be.
You don't know.
He could be Kyle McCord. He could. Thing is, he's a much more athletic Kyle McCord. I'll say that for sure.
My problem with Will Howard is he wouldn't have started at Kansas State this year if he would have stayed. Avery Johnson would have been having his starting job.
Probably true. Yeah.
And that's my big issue is we are basically getting Kansas State hand-me-downs. Now, Will Howard has to go out and prove that. He's got his own chip sponsorship with NIL, with the Grippo's chips, which are very delicious, by the way.
Very good. The barbecue chips? Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. Those are amazing. Not sponsored by Grippo's, by the way.
But if they would want to reach out to the Ball and Beats podcast, you can email us at ballandbeatspod@gmail.com for, further business inquiries.
But I would trust Dylan Gabriel than I would trust Will Howard.
100%.
At this point. Now, it could come down to, weeks into the season, and Will Howard could be having the season of his life, and then I could change. But preseason, I have to take Dylan Gabriel.
Have to.
He's more proven.
And honestly, on paper, Oregon, they are, to me, they're the best team on paper.
They're the most complete team in the country.
They don't have a hole, really, on paper, at least right now. Maybe, the season plays out and we see something different, but to me, Oregon on paper is the most complete team in college football, and they should be the number 1 team in the country as the season starts. On paper, that's different than playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to my other semifinal matchup, I know you see already, but I do have Georgia, Alabama, and you are
high on Kalen DeBoer, aren't you?
I am high on Kalen DeBoer. Don't get me mistaken with that, because I do believe in the fact that winners continue to win wherever they go. And when you have the standard you do at Alabama, arguably the highest standard in the sport, you can't accept anything less. And to me, I feel like they got a coach who truly understands that. And I feel like they're going to continue. Like, let's be honest. Nick Saban's still going to be a part of this organization. Still a part of this program.
Yes.
It's not like
It's going to be like when Urban Meyer said that he was leaving, but he's still going to be connected to the Ohio State football program.
Yeah.
Same thing Mark D'Antonio did at Michigan State. When he, basically quit, he said, I'm still going to be around the program, helping, the guys out. And then when Mel Tucker came in, helping out Mel Tucker. But no, I think Alabama's going to be good. I think you might be a little bit too high on them, but I think that Alabama will be good this year.
So, national championship game. Spencer's was Oregon, Georgia. Mine is Oregon.
Big Ten versus SEC.
Alabama.
You're gonna pick Bama. I already know it, and then I'm gonna clown you when Alabama goes 9-3 this year and doesn't make the playoffs.
Kevin,
hey,
we both agree. So I had to dog him because we both are in agreement that the Oregon Ducks are going to be first-time national champions here.
Pop the bottles in Eugene.
Pop the bottles in Eugene. There's probably 2 or 3 of them outside of campus. I don't know if that's how that works up there. But, hey, Phil Knight, congratulations. You now only need to spend millions of dollars instead of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
And Oregon Ducks, congratulations on your first national championship. Sorry if we just both completely jinxed you on this, where we both picked Oregon.
Sorry.
So, but that's okay. That's what we do here. That's what we do here best.
To be fair, though, I think we both said Michigan was going 15-0 at the beginning of last year. They ended up going 15-0.
They did. So.
But no, I think that it's not a doubt. I think that Oregon has the most complete team, and you can say Georgia, you can say Ohio State. You can say Florida State and all this stuff, but it's just I have a feeling about the Ducks this year.
I do too.
The Ducks have come so close so many times, and I don't hate Oregon. at all. I think they're actually a fun team, and I think they got a fun stadium in Autzen Stadium. And I think Eugene, Oregon is going to be the mecca of college football this year.
I think so too. I mean,
and I can't wait for that Ohio State-Oregon game.
They don't necessarily have the seat volume that a lot of the Big Ten
very
schools
small.
do have. It is really small.
I think it only seats 54 or 55,000, something like that.
It's not a lot.
But it's an interesting-looking stadium.
It's an interesting-looking stadium.
Weird
but it's
structure,
also
but it's very cool.
It's very loud in there. It's very loud in Autzen.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't sound like 55,000. It definitely sounds like more like Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State environments at Oregon. And really, this is a football program that historically has never really been that good up until
2014.
Before then,
early
2000s with Joey Harrington.
But they never got to the peak
No.
of what they did in 2014.
Correct.
Also, just realized both of our playoffs had all the teams from the 2014 playoffs, so good to see that.
Yeah, it did.
But no, I think Oregon's going to be. I think we both agree. Oregon's going to have the best team this year, and I don't think they go undefeated. I don't. I think they lose one of either the Ohio State or Michigan game.
I make the argument, I think the only real team you could actually see undefeated is that group of 5 final seed.
Liberty, look at Liberty's schedule. Liberty plays nobody. They play Michigan School of the Blind 12 times.
Wow.
And they're going to win all 12 games.
Wow.
But no, so.
Yeah, so.
The Ducks.
The Ducks prevail. Hold up the O.
That is terrible.
And sorry for the jinx, Oregon. I'm so sorry when you go 6-6 this season.
6.
It's not like Dylan Gabriel didn't just go 7-5 or 8-4 last year, and we're just hyping you up to fail. But congratulations, Oregon, on your national championship.
Is this his 4th year?
5th or 6th now. Because you got to remember.
It's not because he went to UCF.
UCF, Oklahoma,
Oregon. Now Oregon.
To be fair, you've also always seen a quarterback like in the last couple years, who is quote-unquote older than your typical quarterback going into the draft that performs absolutely out of this world and becomes a top 2, top 3
Look
pick.
at Michael Penix. I mean, yeah.
So I could see that happening for Dylan Gabriel 100%. I wouldn't be shocked if we get to draft time next season talking about this, and he could possibly be the 2nd or 3rd quarterback taken in the class.
Who doesn't love a lefty quarterback?
Who exactly?
It's fun.
Exactly.
Who doesn't love a southpaw?
Maybe Atlanta will draft him so that way they could have a true backup behind Michael Penix Jr., a guy who is practically the same age. Yeah, so that way they could be solidified for the next 20 years. They're both going to be
25.
Yeah, exactly. So congrats on the Falcons for finding their next
future
before the future.
Yeah, their next backup to have behind Michael Penix.
The Falcons, man. They just make no
Speaking
sense.
Of the Falcons. Well, why don't we get into our NFL segment?
Yeah, let's get into our NFL segment. This is going to be the last segment of the day. All football here today, though, as we're still previewing divisions here. And why not just preview our favorite divisions here with the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns? We're going to do the NFC and AFC North today. Let's start off in the NFC North, though. And you got to, of course, start off with the NFC champs and the Detroit Lions. So, Spencer, kick us off.
Yeah, the Lions, I will say training camp, they need to, tone it down or put these guys in bubble wrap because every notification I get, someone else has a foot injury, has a hamstring problem. Penei Sewell got injured yesterday, but apparently he's okay. No, I think the Lions are going to be very good this year. Just coming off of last season where they went 12-5, they have a much tougher schedule than they do last year and more primetime games. This team's their offense is going to stay the same. They're still going to have an elite offense. Their biggest question mark is going to be their defense again this year. I think that it should be better, but it's a lot younger. Rookies, Ness Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold. And then they got Carlton Davis as a corner, Amik Robertson as to play nickel, and then they got DJ Reader on the defensive line. So this defensive line is probably going to be this team's best unit, or at least on that side of the ball. With Lee McNeil, Aiden Hutchinson, and DJ Reader when he's Reader's when he's healthy is a top 15 defensive tackle in the league. And I think this team is going to have a defensive line where you're not going to run the ball on them. I think the Lions end up winning the North again. Not because I'm biased, but because I think they have the best overall team in the North. It is going to be a lot closer than last year because Green Bay is going to be very good. The Bears are a wild card, and the Vikings are the Vikings. The Vikings are going to suck this year. Sam Darnold's their quarterback. Yeah, they're going to suck. So record predictions, I'll say the Vikings go 6-11. I think they're going to have a tough year with Sam Darnold, but they still have a good defense and solid offense to where he can make plays. TJ Hawkinson is going to be healthy, hopefully, here in a few weeks, but he's probably going to be sitting out the first few weeks of the season. I think they're expecting him to be back week 4 or week 5. The Bears are a massive wild card. This team could be awful, or this team could be up there to win the North. It all depends on how Caleb Williams is. I do like what the Bears have done. I think the Bears have the best wide receiver core in the league with Keenan Allen, with DJ Moore, and with Rome Odunze.
I will say, if this was like 5 years ago.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
Keenan Allen is still a 1,000-yard receiver when healthy. DJ Moore is a wide receiver 1. And Rome Odunze is a... Rome Odunze had one of the best years a wide receiver had last year, but wasn't named Marvin Harrison Jr.
I agree with the last two things. Keenan Allen, now, it's no shade on Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen's a great wide receiver. It's just... you're right. He is a 1,000-yard receiver when healthy, but you just haven't seen it in quite a while.
I've seen it in the Chargers. A few years ago, he had 1,000 yards.
Exactly. A few years ago.
He got injured last year. Before that, he was healthy.
Keenan Allen, just stay healthy, and then I'd be like, you know what? He might be onto something. Just stay healthy. That's all I ask for.
Yeah, but you could say that about any player in the league.
You can, but the thing is, there's repeated cycles. Like Deshaun Watson, unhealthy at quarterback.
You might be better with him being unhealthy at quarterback. I'd rather have Jameis at this point.
I mean, the way he can motivate has actually gone so much higher than it was at the beginning of his career.
But no, I think that the Bears are going to be a big wild card. I do like what this team has done. I think they've upgraded their defense a lot. That defensive line with Montez Sweat is going to be very, very good this year. I heard that it was between them and the Falcons for Matthew Judon. Thank God Judon didn't go to the Bears. I do not want to play against Judon and Sweat 2 times a year. And the secondary is very good. The linebackers had a very good year with T.J. Edwards last year. Terrell Edmonds, I believe they had is their other linebacker. And their corner was with Jalen Johnson. Jalen Johnson's a very good. Jaquan Brisker is a good safety. They have a good defense. I think their defense is their better unit. Their big question marks their offense because they're very young. And their offensive line is not that great. And then with Green Bay is a big wild card this year, but I think they have a higher chance of being good than the Bears. Jordan Love, it's going to come down to him.
The bag.
He got the bag this offseason for playing a half a season. Bro sat for 3 years.
That's how you finesse.
Played one full year, had a crappy first half of his career, and then had his second half of his life, and he got $55 a year for 4 years, I believe. And he did deserve it. He looked really good, but, he needs to prove it this year.
He deserved it more than Daniel Jones ever deserved 40.
Well, anybody deserves money over Daniel Jones. That dude just blows. My biggest question mark with the Packers is going to be their offensive receivers. Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, and Christian Watson. They need to take steps this year. They have solid receivers, but they need to have one of those dudes step up and be the wide receiver 1 for me to pick the Packers to be the division winner later on in the year. If Romeo Doubs goes out and just starts out hot, or Jaden Reed or Christian Watson, if he can actually stay healthy for once, then I will pick them to be up there with the Lions. But right now I can't, because I've seen the Packers have a very good second half of their season and then choke against the Niners in the playoffs again, which was hilarious. Great to watch, by the way. It was a fantastic divisional round.
Can we talk about the game after that?
What
you want to talk about the game after that? The NFC Championship game. Hold on.
I don't want to rehash on that. I can't remember it.
For the record, everybody, it's halftime of that game, right? And the Lions are just destroying the San Francisco 49ers. They look like they are 1/2 away from finally making their first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. So I decide to leave. And leave Spencer to go watch the rest of the game on his own. And I say, congratulations on making your first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's all right, buddy. It's all right, though.
Yeah, whatever. Go after yourself.
Wow, that's a personal attack right there. Kevin, you hear that? That makes me sad.
Wah. Yeah, okay, sure. Whatever you say. But... yeah, and then I think the Lions will end up winning the North this year. I think the Lions will go 12-5. I think the Packers go 10-7. I think the Bears go 8-9, and I think the Vikings go 6-11. I think the Lions have the best overall team in the division, and I think they have the more proven team in the division. If Green Bay goes out and they obliterate the Eagles week 1 and then they just go on a tear, then I'll change my opinion. But as right now, the Lions are the more proven team. They've built the right way. All their good players are young. They signed all their good players to contracts. They have a ton of cap space. This team is going to be good for a while. Hopefully. Please. God's sakes.
So
but, yeah.
I think personally, the Lions are on paper. They've proved it. They are the more proven team here in the division. I don't know. I just feel like Green Bay's a wild card, and I actually feel like Green Bay is gonna just win the division again. I just think Green Bay, they just don't fall off. They can never fall off.
It's not fair.
And yeah, exactly.
Franchise quarterback after franchise quarterback after maybe franchise.
Don't worry. The Lions are definitely making the playoffs. It's not like I don't think that fall off is going to be crazy. I don't really see a fall off. I just think Green Bay's just going to play that good and truly just surprise people and win the NFC North.
Going to be good 2 matchups for the Lions and Packers.
Yeah, it could be a third. Could be a third. Later on in the playoffs, who knows? But I do think Green Bay is that good with Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is that good at quarterback. I think he's deserving of the contract he ended up getting. And I do think, the wide receiving core is very young, and that roster is very young. But that's also really the best way to succeed anymore in the NFL. Besides a mix of your veteran players, but if you have youth and talent, and the growth and the potential is there, I think Green Bay has a lot of it. Yeah, they have Josh Jacobs now replacing Aaron Jones at running back, but, that's not a fall off at all. That's pretty much even playing field. Yeah. And, Green Bay, they still got pieces. I know their defense was awful last season. Shout out Joe Barry.
I love Joe Barry.
Aaron would love some more Joe Barry. I love that,
defense. Dude. We should have had Aaron call in for
this. We should have. But that's all right.
I love Joe Barry. He should come back. He should be a defensive coordinator again for the Packers.
Lifetime contract for the Packers. But that defense is going to be much better this season as well. And I don't know. I just
hired
think Green Bay,
OSU's old DC and Jeff Hafley.
Yeah, Jeff Hafley. He's going to do much better than. I don't think you could get much worse than Joe Barry.
No.
I feel like Green Bay's going to win this division this year. I have them going 13-4.
Oh my God.
I have Detroit finishing second at 11-6. I have Chicago finishing third at, let's go 8-9, and then I have the Vikings at 5-12.
This guy, Green Bay at 13-4.
Yep.
Crack.
More
crack.
More crack in this
more
episode.
Crack.
Huh?
Virginia Tech first, and now Green Bay 13-4. I don't have a problem with the Packers. You say win the division. But 13 games is crazy.
Spencer, at least my hot takes are hot takes.
We're not doing a hot take segment.
I know, but they're not really hot takes. They're just
it's not a hot take segment.
It's
this is our predictions.
Yeah, these are our predictions.
It's not hot take central. It's not saying the Bears are going 13-4. The Bears are doing this.
I didn't say the Bears are going 13-4. That's not happening. They might be 500 or just over, but
can't be 500 unless they tie.
I said. You know what? They will go 500. They're going to go 8-1. I changed my prediction.
That would be funny.
They're going exactly.
That'd be very funny.
They're going exactly 500, 8-1. So, now,
F off.
AFC North talk, shall we? Let's start off with, of course, the division winners and the Baltimore Ravens. And
who finished second? I forgot.
That's a great question. I am kind of forgetting off the top of my head. It was actually, I think it was us.
It was.
It was us.
Yep.
It was the Browns.
Yep, second place.
Yeah, it was.
All right.
Wow. Anyway, Baltimore, right? All they did this offseason is just get better. Derrick Henry. That's so unfair having that with Lamar Jackson. Are you kidding me right now? With that offensive line that they always have, the wide receiving core is actually it's really solid now in Baltimore. Zay Flowers really leading it, and of course Mark Andrews, a top 5 tight end in football.
Yeah, Art Modell knows what he's doing.
Don't piss me off right now. Don't you dare bring up Art Modell's name. How dare you? How dare you bring up Art Modell's name?
You want to hear a fun fact? You know what the Ravens' first pick as an expansion franchise was? Ray Lewis.
I might hit somebody on set. Is that all right, Kevin? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do it. But Art Modell, man, don't ever bring his name up again on this podcast. That is a banned name on the Ball and Beats podcast. If that name's ever brought up again, yeah, this set's gonna go to tear down. But
2 Super Bowls.
Baltimore, all they did was improve, adding Derrick Henry into the backfield with Lamar Jackson. I mean, the option game is now so open for Baltimore, and it's truly unfair having the wrecking ball that is Derrick Henry in the backfield with them. Like I said, Zay Flowers is honest. I think he's borderline top 15 wide receiver in the NFL.
I think he should have a good year this year.
I
think he's going to take that. This is his 3rd year coming up, right?
Yeah.
3rd year step. So that 3rd year extra next step that he's going to take.
Thing is, I feel like
I could see him getting, because I think with Baltimore, he's going to be their main guy. Obviously, Mark Andrews is their tight end, and he's going to probably be their second option. I think Zay Flowers is going to elevate his game to be that first option. I could see him getting 1,400 receiving yards this year.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, he is easily wide receiver 1 for the Ravens moving forward. And it's really something they hadn't had for like 4 or 5 years under Lamar Jackson. And to me, Lamar Jackson, I mean, you can say
their best receiver has been like OBJ.
No, their best wide receiver has been Mark Andrews at tight end.
Well,
that's the real fact of the matter there. But I feel like Lamar Jackson, he gets a lot of hate for his passing abilities. And to be honest, it is there. It's not like it isn't. It's not great, but it's also not as bad as people make it seem. People forget his MVP.
He's an elite quarterback.
His MVP season, he led the league in touchdown passes. His first time around. Like, let's not act like that didn't happen.
He's better with his legs, obviously.
Of course
he's a very but all mobile quarterbacks are.
Right.
It's just based on your game.
Right. And to me, Lamar Jackson, he utilizes his skills as best he can. To me, he's the toughest quarterback to actually contain and stop.
Yeah.
I think even more than Patrick Mahomes. Not saying Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he has 3 Super Bowls to back it up, and he always shows up when it matters most, but to actually truly contain Lamar Jackson, I feel like, is probably the toughest on paper because, I mean, his skill set, it's just what it is. He's more mobile than I think any other quarterback we've really seen, more athletic than any other quarterback, more than Michael Vick even was, and to me, better arm.
Yeah.
So I feel like, we got to give a lot of credit to Lamar Jackson, specifically in the black and blue division that is the AFC North. Yeah, he's had the health concerns in the past, but really, I mean, not anymore. It's not there no more, really. So that's going to keep on going. Now on to Cleveland. The Cleveland Browns. I do have a lot of faith in this team this year, and you have to put it in Deshaun Watson. Is he going to be that giggle? Can't do that giggle. To me, Deshaun Watson, on paper, I thought he was about to come into his own that Baltimore game. Little did I know, he was playing on one arm and one leg. But I think Deshaun Watson's going to find himself this year in Cleveland. I'm not saying he's going to be an MVP. I'm not saying he's going to be, he's not going to carry us to the promised land this season and win us a Super Bowl or nothing. But I feel like the foundation is finally going to be set for Deshaun Watson to truly succeed in Cleveland. I think this year's the year. You maintain almost everybody on the offense. Well, I mean, you don't have Kareem Hunt no more. You got other backup running backs, but he wasn't supposed to be there last year in the first place because of Nick Chubb. So, once we get Nick Chubb back and healthy, I think this offense is going to be more smooth. And now that you have Ken Dorsey as offensive coordinator, this team's going to be a pass-first offense. It's going to be a pass-first offense, and you still have Amari Cooper. You've got Jerry Jeudy in a trade with the Broncos, and honestly, to me, Jerry Jeudy is a top-tier wide receiver, too. I think he is a wide receiver, too, in the league, and I feel like his role there is going to be great. I think Elijah Moore might step up a little bit this season, too. One of my favorite moves of the offseason for the Browns was extending Owusu-Koramoah. To me, I think he's a breakout linebacker. I think he's a very slept-on linebacker. He led the league, arguably. He was closer, led the league. I forgot exactly. He was close in tackles, most tackles. Most tackles for loss, I believe, as at any position. I think he had that last season as well. And, I feel like that's a position group that was such a weakness for Cleveland that now it's not. It's a strength. It's the linebacker room. And I see a lot of pieces in the defense. Another guy who I think is going to continue to get even better and better every single year is Grant Delpit. I think he's a true hidden safety in the league. I think he's arguably top 10 safety in the league. And this Cleveland defense, we already know. I mean, Myles Garrett,
You don't have to worry about the defense.
Don't have to worry about the defense. It's all the offense, and it's all through Deshaun Watson. I think Deshaun Watson, I think he's going to be all right. And I think this Cleveland Browns team is going to be a borderline wild card team. I do think they'll be about where they were last year. I don't see the fall off at all. In fact, I think there might be more improvement than a fall off for Cleveland this season. The third team, Pittsburgh last year. Man, what a wild card with Pittsburgh. Honestly, this year it feels like a true wild card, even though I feel like we already know they're going to go 9-8 at least.
Yeah. Actually, they're probably just going to go with that record, 9-8.
Yeah, I feel like it don't matter who's quarterback. It don't matter who's playing on the field. Pittsburgh's always going to be at least 500 or just above 500. I'm not going to lie, though. I think by the end of the season, I do think Justin Fields will be their starting quarterback.
I agree.
I don't see Russell Wilson being the long-term answer. I do see Justin Fields being the long-term answer, and I think Pittsburgh is actually going to give him the best chance to be successful out of any organization out there because of the stability they have with their owners, Mike Tomlin. I like the setup for Justin Fields, and I just don't know about Russell Wilson anymore. Like, Russell Wilson, he was one of my favorite quarterbacks growing up. He was. I loved watching him in Seattle. Denver, ever since, I mean...
He hasn't been the same.
He hasn't been the same. And I feel like it's partially his mentality. There's a lot of kind of questionable ways how he handles himself, apparently, off the field. But I don't know. I think Justin Fields is the long-term answer for Pittsburgh moving forward. Russell Wilson's definitely going to be week 1 starter. I don't see him lasting past week 10. I don't. And, they got a lot of other pieces. They're finally picking up the offensive line, which was a massive weakness. It's finally
Pittsburgh's O-line
seems
was
built.
terrible.
They're always in the trenches. That's what they're always known for. In the last couple of years, our offensive line has just not been up to par.
Yep.
And their running game dropped down dramatically because of it. I expect Jalen Warren to still be running back 1, and I feel like he's actually going to get better this year with a better offensive line. I think the only real question mark you have is wide receiver depth on that offense. You have George Pickens.
Who I think will have a good year. I think Pickens will have like 1,200 receiving yards this year. I think Pickens will be good. The problem is that I think Pittsburgh, if they could go get Brandon Ayuk from San Francisco, I think this would elevate this offense to a new level.
Yes.
With having Ayuk and then on the other side George Pickens. And then Pat Freiermuth is your tight end, because that offense will be set. Your quarterback is, you can figure that out because you have 2 quarterbacks to choose from. And I do think it will be Justin Fields at the end of the day, towards the end of the season. But to begin, I think with Russell Wilson, if he can have those 2 weapons, because Pittsburgh's wide receiving core is not great. It's Pickens, and then since they traded away Deontay Johnson, who is there? Exactly. I
was about to say James Washington. He hasn't been on the team in 2 years.
I couldn't name you Pittsburgh's wide receiver.
Let's go back to 2015, 2016 and bring back Martavis Bryant.
Yeah. What's Antonio Brown doing these days?
I'm not going to lie. I don't think a lot of people really want to know what he's doing anymore.
But no, I think...
No, shade on AB. You know what? You should come on the Ball and Beats podcast, Antonio Brown. That'd be really good.
That would be a fun episode, man. Pittsburgh will probably go 9-8. Pittsburgh reminds me a lot of Cleveland, but I think Cleveland has a better roster than Pittsburgh, but defense is set, both teams, and offense is a question mark on both teams. I think with Cleveland, they have a more set roster than just their it's just their quarterback. Other than that, Cleveland's got a team that can win the division, make deep playoff runs. Pittsburgh, I don't think does, but they do remind me a lot of Cleveland in ways that they have a good defense. Pittsburgh always does. Their offense is kind of iffy, but with having new quarterbacks now, 2 new quarterbacks, we're going to see what they do. Russell Wilson is going to start week 1 and then see how he does as he progresses from week to week. Because I think that in the AFC North, they're not going to take him being bad. They'll switch right to Justin Fields. And if both of these players don't work out, then Pittsburgh's going to have to make a big decision coming up.
Yeah,
that's where Dak Prescott
to piggyback
goes.
off of that, talking about the defenses, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, you might be talking about the 2 best defenses in the NFL. And honestly, I don't see that slowing down. I only see both defenses continuously improving. Yeah. But yeah, the question mark in Pittsburgh, they got a lot of offensive question marks. You already know that defense is set.
Yep.
Truth of the matter is, this is a franchise, regardless, it almost seems like no matter how good or bad they are, they somehow just seem to always be consistently
They don't rebuild.
good.
Pittsburgh doesn't rebuild. Now that's kind of, might hurt them in the end that they don't rebuild because they're not getting top picks, top talent.
Yeah.
But, they have a good enough roster right now to where I think Joey Porter Jr. is going to take a step in the right direction this year as CB1. You know what you have with Minkah Fitzpatrick. TJ Watt's arguably the best defensive player in football.
Sorry. I just had a cough there. Myles Garrett.
I'm sure. I am sure.
Myles Garrett.
But no, and Pittsburgh's lone thing is their defensive line is kind of gotten older and it's kind of been stagnant, but their linebackers are good, corners are good, safeties are good. Pittsburgh just has a lot of question marks on offense, and this team needs to make a decision on their quarterback, and they need to make a decision on Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, you're right though. If they get Brandon Ayuk, I do think
It elevates their team to a new level.
it does, but it still comes down to quarterback for me there.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it does elevate on paper. It's like, okay, yeah, this team, they can be a
But
legitimate
I
playoff
would
team.
put them as having as much talent on offense as the Browns if they go get Ayuk.
Yeah, they're close still. I would say so. It's tough though because I feel like the Browns actually have more wide receiver depth, which is hard to say. But I do think
Pittsburgh
that
would have more star talent, I would say.
maybe
with
so.
Ayuk and Pickens.
Maybe so. Yeah, you're right. You're right there. You're not. Screw you. All right, time to get to the last team in the division, and a team that really, this division is stacked, let's be honest, on paper. The Cincinnati Bengals from last year, of course.
The Bungles.
Of course. It all comes down to the health of Joe Burrow. And to be honest, I still think this offensive line has a lot of question marks.
This offensive line has had question marks since Burrow got here.
I still feel like, there's still missing pieces on that offensive line for Cincinnati. The thing is, this team on paper should win a division. I don't know if they do. I don't think they do. And to be honest, I wouldn't be shocked if they are still in the same place at the end of this season
I don't think they finished below
because
Pittsburgh.
of Joe Burrow and his health. They have Jamar Chase, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. T. Higgins is more than likely gone after this year because they can't afford it. But the thing is, we really got to start talking about Joe Burrow and his genuine health concerns being a factor of how much longer does he have in the league if it continues to go down this path. We could truly see an Andrew Luck type of, a paradigm here. I think it's pretty similar. As long as this offensive line, it has to come this year. If this offensive line is not good enough this year and you see Joe Burrow get unhealthy again, you really got to start questioning Cincinnati and if they really, do what's right for Joe Burrow. But congratulations on getting the bag again. More bag
My main thing
handouts.
with Cincinnati is they have a lot more drama this year, too, because of the Jamar Chase situation.
Yes.
Of not paying Jamar Chase. And the thing about the Bengals is they have a cheap owner and they're a cheap franchise. They don't like paying players. It probably hurt them to pay Joe Burrow $55 million.
Oh, yeah.
But Cincinnati needs to get it right this year because I agree. I think that if Cincinnati doesn't get it right this year, we need to start questioning the Bengals on their entire team. Because to me right now, if Joe Burrow's healthy, they have arguably one of the best offenses in the league. Joe Burrow's health is a huge question mark, though, because of his offensive line every year in Cincinnati has just been bad. Every single year, he's running for his life. The only year the offensive line was even somewhat solid was the year they made the Super Bowl. And even then, the offensive line wasn't good. He was still running for his life in the Super Bowl.
They just happen to be that good.
They just happen to be, and they happen to be a little bit better than what they have been, which has been atrocious. And this Bengals offensive line is going to get Burrow killed if they don't get their stuff straight. So Cincinnati is a big wild card. I could see them winning this division, going 13-4, or I could see them finishing below 500. This is a huge, huge year for the Bengals. If the Bengals don't make the playoffs, or if the Bengals don't win the division, or if they just don't look like, the Bengals from a few years ago, elite, fun offense, defense that's stingy at times, then you need to start questioning your general manager. You need to start questioning the Bengals roster as a whole and seeing how you can fix this.
Yeah, so my final standings, I'm not going to lie, I'm not changing one thing. I think it's going to be Baltimore at 1. I think they're going to go 12-5. I think Cleveland's going to stay up there. I do think Deshaun Watson's going to prove himself. I do think the Browns are going to go 11-6 and make the playoffs this season. That's not me being biased. I
don't think that's. I think that's where about everybody. I mean, a good amount of people. 10-7, 11-6. I have the Browns going 10-7.
Yeah,
the Browns have a really tough schedule this year.
They do. That's the thing. They could go. To be fair, the AFC North has a tough schedule this season. Yeah. So honestly, the records could be a little bit lower.
You play the AFC West and you play the NFC East, right?
Yes.
Yeah, those are tough to. Well, Chiefs for one, but but the NFC East is tough.
Yeah, I have Pittsburgh still at 3, and I'm gonna say they're gonna still go 500 or just over 500. Excuse me, at 9-8. It's hard to not have Pittsburgh be not over 500. It just can't happen. Until it does happen, you can't say it.
Yeah.
On paper, it probably should be that case this year, but until it happens, I can't go against it. And Cincinnati, this is such a hard thing to do because I feel like Cincinnati on paper should arguably be the second best team in this division at least. But I'm going to have them at last, and it's not going to be by much. I do think they're going to be just under 500 at 8-9. But I have a lot of question marks about Cincinnati. It's not that, they can't do it. It's just I got to see Joe Burrow stay upright and stay healthy. I just feel like, to me, that's the biggest question mark for me. If Cincinnati, come week 3, week 4, look good, I'll rescind this. But right now, I feel like the division's going to play out just as it did last year.
I agree. No, I do agree with your top 2. I think Baltimore finished. I have Baltimore getting one more game. I think Baltimore is 13-4. I think they do end up finishing top of the AFC. I think this team is just absolutely loaded. But I have Cleveland going 10-7. I have Cleveland going 10-7 at second place. I have Cincinnati finishing just under them at 10-7, and then I have Pittsburgh at 9-8. I have everybody going above 500 again. Baltimore, Cleveland, and since Cincinnati is like the 6th playoff spot, they are barely get in. And I think Cleveland will get a wild card spot too. I think Cleveland, you could throw one of the worst quarterbacks out there, your defense will still give you a shot. And I think that's the main thing. Your defense is arguably one of the best in the league. Your big question mark is just your offense. And it was last year. But if they just get decent play from Deshaun Watson, this team will be really good.
Yes.
Problem is they haven't. They
did his last game.
Game.
They did.
He had a lot of completions. He didn't have a lot of yards. He got like 10 yards of completion. He was solid, but he was nothing special. And Cleveland didn't win that game because of Watson. They won because of their defense.
I'd like to make the argument the
defense got a pick 6.
It was a combination.
The defense got a pick 6 in the fourth quarter.
Spencer, let's be honest here. If you watch the flow of that game.
He played for the first half and then left.
He played that whole game.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did. He was there the whole game. Second half, he didn't throw an incompletion.
I don't remember that. But I don't watch Browns football, so
yeah.
But it doesn't matter. Deshaun Watson, he just has decent play. If Deshaun Watson doesn't have decent play, this team will probably still make the playoffs. If Cleveland had a top 10 quarterback, they would be up for the Super Bowl. That's how good this roster is. Their quarterback situation is just so bad. It's Deshaun Watson, who you don't know what you're going to get. And I think if Watson doesn't get his stuff straight this year, Cleveland needs to look at the quarterback thing again. If
that is a unique topic to bring up, though, because, a lot of people are saying, is this the make or break year for Deshaun Watson?
If he has a bad year and Cleveland goes 9-8, it's because of your defense. If you go 9-8, it's because of your defense.
Mm-hmm.
And Watson has a below average year. He has, let's say, 20 touchdowns, 14 picks, 3,500 yards. So a little below average. You'd like more from a guy who's making 65 a year, guaranteed. Obviously, Cleveland can't really get rid of this guy unless they buy him out. But I if he has a bad year, I would start looking at other quarterbacks. I would look at either drafting a quarterback in the draft next year and having him develop for a year or two.
Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders, the Cleveland package.
Man, you would love that, wouldn't you?
Oh.
Yeah, you would love that.
Yeah, no, we just extended Kevin Stefanski. I feel pretty good about my coaching situation at least. But
bring him on as an OC if Ken Dorsey does what he did in Buffalo.
No. To me, it's weird to say it. I don't think this is a situation. I feel like this is not the make or break year for Deshaun Watson. Because I feel like they want to see at least one healthy year first before they actually give him a true make or break season. You had the first year, only played the last 6 games of the year, and he only played 6 games last season.
You're not getting any younger. Your
Yes.
defense isn't going to stay intact for much longer because Cleveland's caps. I mean, you're going to have to pay all your players.
Now, it might be a make or break year for our true Super Bowl window chance, hypothetically speaking, this year, next year. But I don't think it's a make or break for Deshaun Watson himself because I think they want to give him one true season of actual play and then go into that next year and then truly dive into it more. I'm not saying it easily could be knowing the Browns because they, the quarterback carousel that we were for years. But I do think Deshaun Watson, I think he'll be all right for this season. I don't think it'll be a make or break year. So I think that Cleveland will be all right. The defense, solid. Quarterback play, can it be at least average? If it can be at least average, you got something in Cleveland. If it's any better, you already know how I'll be talking. And if it's any worse, you also know how I'll be talking. So,
I can't. That first game against Dallas is going to be a big, big game.
Oh, definitely in my household. Ooh,
And that too.
Sorry, Dad. We're gonna beat your ass.
Hey, so how about this? If Deshaun Watson has a bad year, what if you go get Dak Prescott?
And that's actually going to wrap up
Or,
this episode
for
here
Kevin's
of the Ball
sake,
Beats podcast.
If Pittsburgh
Thank you
has a
so
bad
much.
year, go
Thank you
get
so
Dak
much for
Prescott
watching.
for $60 million
We
a year.
appreciate it. Go like, subscribe.
Pittsburgh fans would love
and
that.
hit that push notification bell to stay up to date on all new videos. We appreciate the time. Dak Prescott, you are not
Dak
coming
Prescott's
to Cleveland.
going to be a Cleveland Brown.
Sayonara. We will see y'all next week. Take care.
Can't wait for it.
And peace.